leader of opposition party in my country could be so misguided by the definition of very faith that he claims that he follows. What is Hinduism? As I said, Ayam nija parveti ganna laguchetsam udarcharitanam tu vasudev kutumbakam. The whole world is one family is what Hinduism teaches us. Hinduism has taught us to accept everyone as equals. But opposition and like-minded people, they always have tried to defame this pure religion and this pure ideology.
You talked about our neighbors. That brings us to this raging issue in our country today. I'm following Pahalgam terror attack. How do you think India should respond as a citizen, as a politician? How should we react?
It sounds very satisfying when you say invade, bum se uda do, eye for an eye and all those things. I'm not saying that India, it's very unfortunate what happened, and my sympathies are there with the families of those who lost their lives. But we also must realize that India at this moment should not act impulsively. ताकत सांड में भी होती है, लेकिन जीतता हमेशा शेर है.
Do you visualize yourself, in more sort of being in the background, or is it more a hands-on approach in active politics? How do you visualize your role with Kartikey?
To begin with, I'm not a politician. I don't plan on becoming a politician. I am a psychologist. That's what I want to stick to. But my mother-in-law is my mentor in many ways. Like the way she has supported my father-in-law, it's inspiring. And I think that's kind of the same role I want to have for Kartikey too. I feel like he is going to be one of India's greatest leaders. I don't want to be too naive, but I do believe that sincerely, and I will be behind him and support him in whichever way I can. And
you see, it's a blessing to be Shivraj Chouhan's son, but it's also a big challenge. I mean, to start with, people talk about you and just say he's just a dynast. They're being dismissive of your capabilities, potential, just because you are a dynast. How do you address that?
I had said this in a previous interview as well. विरासत आपको मंच दिला सकती है, तालियां नहीं मिल सकती विरासत में. While it's true that my father has served on various important positions, and it wouldn't be an exaggeration if I say that he has reached the heights of Indian democracy, and his stature as a politician, as a union cabinet minister or ex-chief minister of Madhya Pradesh has overshadowed my efforts sometimes. But I don't see it as a shadow. It always teaches me that, hey, you have to work a little harder because the expectations are higher for you.
Hello, I'm DK Singh. This is Iram Siddique, my colleague in Bhopal. We have here with us a beautiful, brilliant couple, Kartikey Chouhan and Amanat Chouhan. Kartikey is the son of Union Minister and the longest serving Chief Minister of Madhya Pradesh, Shivraj Singh Chouhan, and you must be familiar with his face. Amanat comes from a business family. And if you're fond of liberty shows, well, you have to thank her family. They got married only last month. Congrats to both of you and welcome to ThePrint.
Thank you, sir. Thank you for having us here.
Kartikey, over the last couple of days while I was planning to come here, I was asking people about you. That, Shivraj Singh Chouhan's son, he went to study law at Pennsylvania, came back, although he has been managing his constituency for quite a few years. But is Shivraj Singh Chouhan's son up for the rough and tumble of politics? And I was told by those people who have known you, that you are as good a politician as anybody can be. Are you a full-time politician now?
Firstly, I would like to thank you, and I'm glad you had an interaction. I feel elated by all the good words that I have heard, and thank you for your kind words. As far as my political journey is concerned, I see myself as a learner right now, and at a stage in my life where I'm trying to grasp as much as I can. I have been active in my political constituency for last 12 years, but this act should not be seen as a selfish act. I did not activate myself there to become something. It was to do something. In my father's political constituency, while he was the chief minister, and when the responsibilities are much to perform in that role, I did whatever I could to make life easier for my people. And to say that I'm going to be in the active role is not for me to decide actually. What's for me to decide? My hard work and my conviction towards people, and that I will do with all my efforts. But I won't decide when I'm going to fight the election. I won't decide when I'm going to be a representative.
But you are a full-time politician now.
I am also a lawyer by profession. I have my own enterprise, and I am a full-time social worker who has a social enterprise and who wants to do something for the society.
That brings me to Amanat. Amanat, you did your psychology from Oxford, then I read somewhere that the Forbes recognized you as the Gen Next entrepreneur. From there to marrying somebody who may soon be eating, drinking, and dreaming politics. How did it happen?
I feel it happened very organically. Like we didn't have to put in that much effort to, and despite what people may think that this must be such an intimidating setup for me to be in, it really wasn't like that. And I do think that there's a lot I can do with this family, considering my education. I'm too very fond of social work. I time and again have interacted with rural India and urban India, and I hope to continue doing that. As for how this happened, I think it was written in the stars. I think that there was no one more perfect for me than Kartikey. And yeah, that's how we are here.
Is it true that you made the son of Shivraj Singh Chouhan wait for 45 minutes on your first date?
Yes, I did, and I'm still apologetic about it. I went to the wrong location by mistake. It was not. I'm a very punctual person, वैसे, but this was one slip, and I think it led to something so great. We still laugh
Every
about
minute was worth it.
that. Yeah.
So, marrying into Shivraj Chouhan's family, is it tough, intimidating?
No. I think a lot of people assume that, people come up to me and they're like, itna bada shift and, this happened and how are you dealing with it? And though there is so much warmth and clarity, I want to specify in this family that you don't really need to. I feel like if you get along with everyone, which you do, I think there's nothing that is sort of intimidating. I have the best mother-in-law in the world. I mean, I can say that very confidently. I have the best husband in the world. Sorry, everybody. So I literally have the best father-in-law, and all of you all know that. I don't think there's anything to be intimidated about. My brother-in-law, sister-in-law, we all sit together, have dinner. We all have discussions about each and everything. There's no restrictions as of such. ये नहीं कि ये करना पड़ता है वो. I have my freedom to do my job, my work. So I think there's nothing but things to be excited about in my future.
Kartikey, I have a lot of questions to ask you about politics. But before that, tell us your version of the story. How did it happen?
Well, how it happened? Well, both of us wanted to settle, we were looking for partners, but we weren't sure that this date is going to be it. We both were unprepared and we both weren't expecting anything. I think that was the best part. We both weren't expecting anything. In fact, if I'm not wrong, Amanat had come with the idea that we should spend only half an hour, and she was already thinking of excuses she would tell her parents. And when she was 45 minutes late, I already had an excuse. So I already had something. I had ammunitions to go tell, look, 45 minutes is a lot of time and I can't do this. But then we met, and I'm telling you, it didn't take us a long time to know and get familiarized with each other. We spent 3 hours together, knowing each other. But that 3 hours didn't even, feel like 3 minutes. It just passed by. And then, again, they say when it clicks when you know. And this was my moment. And I found Amanat, and I can't be more grateful to Almighty.
World outside knows you as Shivraj Singh Chouhan's son. And we have known that you have nursed his constituency, Budni Assembly constituency, for 10 years, 12 years now. But a lot of things. I mean, we probably people outside Madhya Pradesh don't know much about you, your ideology, your politics, your vision. And I must say, I was pleasantly surprised to hear your views on a range of issues, which probably people are not aware of. But let me start with this. What's your ideology?
Hindutva, Rashtravad. But I would also want to explain what my Hindutva is. It's about inclusiveness. Ekam sat bahuda vipra badanti. The truth is one, there could be different interpretations to it. It's like rivers flowing through a piece of land and merging into a common ocean. That's what human beings and our religions are like. We come from different understandings, different corners, but ultimately the aim of this human soul is attainment of moksha. This is my Hindutva. I believe in nationalism, country before everyone and everything. And my ideology is that has found it's anchored in the ideology of integral humanism proposed by Pandit Deen Dayal Upadhyay ji and forwarded by Shyama Prasad Mukherjee. This is something that BJP also lives by, and I have adapted this as I've grown up. Integral humanism teaches us that development should find its roots in the cultural values of a society. It should not be borrowed from other cultures. Pandit Deen Dayal Upadhyay ji always said that the last person in the queue should be benefited. The governance structure should not benefit the society from top to down, scheme, in a top to down scheme manner. It should arise from the bottom. Last person in the queue, until unless he's not benefited by the initiatives of the government, then that's a failure of the government.
Many opposition leaders, primarily Rahul Gandhi, have often talked about how Hindutva is different from Hinduism. You say Hindutva is your ideology. I mean, how do you look at the opposition's interpretation of it?
You see, most respectfully, Honorable Opposition Leader Shri Rahul Gandhi ji's understanding of Hindu and Hindutva is very misguided and misunderstood. And it is unfortunate that leader of opposition party in my country could be so misguided by the definition of very faith that he claims that he follows. What is Hinduism? As I said, Ayam nija parvetti ganna lagu chetsam udar charitra namtu vasudev kutumbakam. The whole world is one family is what Hinduism teaches us. But what is Hindutva? Dharma rakshati rakshataha. You see, Hinduism is like this branch, is this tree from which there are different stems originating, different branches originating. And these branches are like other faiths that are followed in India. I believe that other faiths exist in India because of the soul, because of the reason, because of the soul philosophy of Hinduism that has accepted and encapsulated everyone as one family. But Rahul Gandhi ji and his party colleagues see this as a very different concept or ideology. They see this as an extremism. I dare to say this on TV today, that secularism, the so-called secularism that Rahul Gandhi ji talks about in India, it exists because of Hinduism in India, because Hinduism allows respect towards every religion in this country. Hinduism has taught us to accept everyone as equals. But opposition and like-minded people, they always have tried to defame this pure religion and this pure ideology.
You were telling me before we started that secularism is surviving because India is a Hindu majority country. I mean, what did you mean?
It's because the values that we have, the practices that Hindus have followed for years. In Hinduism, worship of a god is not in a limited form. You're allowed to worship, profess, propagate in God in any form, any manner as you like. You can worship the sun god. You can worship Ganesh. You could worship Vishnu. You could be a Vaishnav. You could be a Shaivite. Even being an atheist is considered Hindu in Hinduism. And it is because of this liberal nature of this religion, or the Hinduism, that all the religions can exist with their independent faiths and beliefs. And we ultimately say that, you might have your ways of practices. We respect that. But ultimately, attainment of moksha, Paramatma ki prapti, is the ultimate aim of humans, is what we believe. And that's why, there are theocratic states in this world where other religions are suffering. Look at our neighbors. But here in India, religions coexist.
You talked about our neighbors. That brings us to this raging issue in our country today. I mean, following Pahalgam terror attack. How do you think India should respond as a citizen, as a politician? How should we react?
Look, it sounds very satisfying when you say invade, bum se uda do, eye for an eye and all those things. I'm not saying that India, it's very unfortunate what happened, and my sympathies are there with the families of those who lost their lives. But we also must realize that India at this moment should not act impulsively. ताकत सांड में भी होती है, लेकिन जीतता हमेशा शेर है. We must gather intelligence. We must strengthen our international relations. We must have sufficient ammunitions in our magazine to be able to shoot and hit the target. I would say, as a citizen of this country, मेरी हैसियत तो नहीं है कुछ कहने की. As a citizen of this country, I think we should gather more ammunition, gather more intelligence, make sure that our tie is internationally, because it's not just one nation that you're going against. And that one nation is not standing alone. We should know that. It's an alliance that you're going against. And are you prepared for that? Is the question. Any impulsive decision could cost us as a country. And India is on an excellent economic trajectory. One of the fastest growing nations in the world. Our GDP growth rate is still amongst the highest. We are the 4th largest economy in the world. We are soon going to surpass Germany. I think there is a lot more that meets the eye when you take into consideration these kind of decisions. All I'm trying to say is that impulsiveness is not the way. We all want revenge, and trust me, with God as my witness, I want to see them hanged as well. I want to see them shot. But that does not that's not how we act as a country.
So, Kartikey, we have seen it's easier to start a war than end it. We see it happening in Gaza, we see it happening in Ukraine. Clearly, you are coming from that standpoint. I mean, coming to you, Amanat, we heard him talk about Hinduism, Hindutva. I don't know whether you were already indoctrinated or he has indoctrinated you after marriage. Where do you stand on that?
I actually have no opinions. I feel like anytime I'm speaking publicly, I should be more informed about any topic. And this is one topic that I'm still sort of learning about. I studied abroad for most of my life, so I'm not very in tandem with a lot of things in India. And I think it would be very naive of me to give any comments.
Does he try to indoctrinate you?
Indoctrinate in terms of like his values on me, not at all. Like he is one person who really values conversation. Like we'll be in the car and sometimes we'll switch on the music, but most of the times we'll be talking and we have so many like opposing views about many things and we'll kind of talk about them, and there'll be a lot of listening involved. I think like both of us are very educated people, so we like learning. We are both very curious in nature. Acha, why do you think this? Acha, but there is a reason for this. Okay, but this is how I put it. And I think that is what keeps both of us growing. And that's the stage I'm at in the political field, at least, growing majorly. Like there's a lot to learn for me.
Tell me something about that Forbes thing I spoke about. I mean, you being acknowledged as a Gen Next entrepreneur.
Yeah.
What was that about?
I think so my startup, it was about this roommate compatibility algorithm. So we identified certain variables, what actually matters. So if we see like in romantic relationships, it's attraction, physical attraction is what matters. But in roommate relationships, which are very platonic in nature, physical attraction is not one of them. Like you won't look at a picture and be able to understand how you'll get along. So we identified certain variables. I wouldn't let them out, but that helped us sort of connect roommates with an 87% accuracy, that 87 out of 100 people will have compatible roommates. So that's how Forbes recognized us. We were first movers with this kind of a thing. And of course, India's market has to be more organized, and that's when we'll be able to integrate this into co-living systems and whatnot. But I think that time Forbes recognized this as a woman-led startup, and as well as mental health related, as well as being contributing to post-COVID growth of people who are moving a lot, trying to find their place in new cities, how they can find their community in a new city where everything else seems so foreign.
So, Amanat, you spoke about mental health. Uh, where do you see yourself? I mean, we are sitting in Madhya Pradesh. It's known for its women-centric initiatives started by Shivraj Singh Chouhan ji. Now that you're part of the family and you come from, a place of championing mental health, how do you see yourself applying these things on the ground? Do you have certain things in mind? Have you had conversation with Shivraj ji on it, or how do you visualize your role while contributing to the society?
So, like, Papa is, I think most people know, is very into women empowerment and development of women. And we've had many conversations how I can help him, be it through health camps, be it through psychoeducation in the rural nations and stuff. And how this education really helps me is by connecting to people. So, even if I travel with the family or with Kartikey, if there's a sort of women community, I am able to go into that community, talk to them, understand their problems, and then relay it forward. So, I think that's where my education has brought this strength in community and public service as well, that I'm able to empathize, and not only empathize, but also understand where a lot of women issues are stemming from and how we can uh, work on them from a very grassroots level, as opposed to, ऊपर से जैसे भी होता है. So I think health, which is again my strength, is a very major thing that I aim to work with my father-in-law with.
You were mentioning about health camps for the rural women, championing mental health. I mean, we still see mental health as a very urban concept. So what is your idea when you also mentioned you visited Budni, and I think Kartikey was very surprised on how well you could connect and how extensively you sort of stayed there and worked with them. So tell us a little bit about that and, mental health for rural women.
I think mental health is again somewhat stigmatized, and I don't think it's fair to just uproot their traditional beliefs of what mental health are and replace it with what, our foreign education has taught us. So my goal is to not go and be like, this is not how you should do it and this is what you should believe. It's more from a place of learning and understanding that, okay, why do you feel this way? And if you have XYZ cures which are not recognized in more urban places, why do you think they work? And once we have more, like as a researcher, I don't come to conclusions without having enough data and having enough conversations around that topic. So I would say right now, even with such a like understood topic like mental health, I think there's still so much to learn from a cultural perspective. I think cross-cultural differences are very significant, and ignoring them would not do any benefit to the rural India.
So, if I may extend my question, we've always seen Sadhna ji as the rock support behind Shivraj ji over the years. She'll cut the interview and ensure he's having his meal on time. How do you see your role with Kartikey? Do you visualize yourself, in more sort of being in the background, or is it more a hands-on approach in active politics? How do you visualize your role with Kartikey?
To begin with, like I'm not a politician. I don't plan on becoming a politician. I am a psychologist. That's what I want to stick to. But my mother-in-law is my mentor in many ways. Like the way she has supported my father-in-law, it's inspiring. And I think that's kind of the same role I want to have for Kartikey too. I feel like he is going to be one of India's greatest leaders. I don't want to be too naive, but I do believe that sincerely, and I will be behind him and support him in whichever way I can. And also because I have interest in public service, and by being in this family, I realized that psychology may be one-on-one, but if you have that with a group, that's politics. I think, like being there supporting people. So I don't think it's very different what I'm doing from him. So I think I have the strengths that are required to help Kartikey, just as my mother-in-law was able to help.
Basically, the way you are looking at it, say 15, 20 years later, when, say, I am interviewing Shivrajji, I introduce him as Kartikey Chouhan's father. Right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So, Kartikey, tell me about your politics. What have you learned from your father? Was he teaching you politics since you were young? When did you start getting interested in politics?
I feel like politics is something that is never taught. But politics is something. Also, it was not something that I did not grow up becoming with a dream of becoming a politician. बड़े होके नेता बनना है. In fact, you'd be surprised to know that my earliest this thing was to become a soldier in the Indian Army. I never wanted to become. But you see, the environment around you molds you. If you're born in a family where the head of the family is a doctor or an engineer or let's say a lawyer, you grow in that environment. Politics was not my choice, but it's something that I grew up in. I'm molded by an atmosphere where I saw people coming to my house all the time with their problems.
And you delivered your first public speech when you were 8.
I was 6 years old, I think.
You were 6. Could you tell us what happened
7
then?
years old, maybe. Well, this was one of the events where my father had organized Samuhik Vivah Sammilan, where you bring poor couples from our constituency and you spend on their weddings. It's a mass wedding ceremony that you hold, and I was asked by one of my father's friends, "Would you like to speak?" And at that age I could not invest a lot of thought, so I said, "Yeah, why not?" And I was given the mic by my father. And then since the wedding, this thing was happening, and dowry was a pressing issue at that time, I went ahead and I spoke. दहेज लेना पाप है, दहेज देना पाप है, मैं अपनी शादी में नहीं लूंगा, आपको भी नहीं लेना है. This was my first speech at 7 years old.
Now that you are a full-fledged politician, I have to ask you this. There is this general cynicism that you notice among the youngsters about politics, about politicians, that these guys do nothing. And the way they react, you must have noticed it. How justified are they, and how would you address them?
Someone is justified if he's willing to do it himself. Just saying that the state of affairs in our country is not acceptable and not even going and voting, then you do not have the You don't have you can't have the audacity to go blame someone. I feel the accountability is both ways here. It's on those youngsters as well, who maybe who choose their government, who don't choose their government. In the other case, they should not be. You should not answer to them, because their question is not coming out of accountability. It's just coming out of a blame. As far as the others are concerned, I feel that in this country, you as an individual are given enough opportunity to lead a change. For those youngsters who say that politicians are ruining this country, I would like to invite them into this field. I am a lawyer by myself. I have an established business. I am doing enough to take care of my family and to run my household. But I'm not happy with the affairs of this country either. I think things can become better for my coming generations, and hence I'm into it. So just blaming and saying politics is not good enough, our leaders aren't doing enough, is not enough. I'm not saying the whole youth to jump into politics and come into leadership roles. That's not what I'm saying. All I'm trying to say is for youngsters to get involved. And there are many ways to get involved into politics. There are direct ways and then there are indirect ways.
You see, it's a blessing to be Shivraj Chouhan's son, but it's also a big challenge. I mean, to start with, people talk about you and just say he's just a dynast. They're being dismissive of your capabilities, potential, just because you are a dynast. How do you address that?
I had said this in a previous interview as well. विरासत आपको मंच दिला सकती है, तालियां नहीं मिल सकती विरासत में. While it's true that my father has served on various important positions, and it wouldn't be an exaggeration if I say that he has reached the heights of Indian democracy, and his stature as a politician, as a union cabinet minister or ex-chief minister of Madhya Pradesh has overshadowed my efforts sometimes. But I don't see it as a shadow. It always teaches me that, hey, you have to work a little harder because the expectations are higher for you. When my father was a youngster like me, he had no cameras, he had no people chasing him, that you are someone's son, you have to do this, you have to do that, you have to act in a particular manner. But my struggle is different. From day one, I'm judged. From day one, I'm on TV screens. From day one, I'm questioned. And from day one, my legitimacy is also questioned. This has come to me as a lesson that in life, you always have to work harder. This motivates me to push harder, to become better. I'm constantly trying to be a better version of myself. And I will make my father proud one day.
In 2023, it was Shivraj Singh Chouhan who won the election for the BJP, and yet he was denied chief ministership. Do you think BJP was unfair to him?
Why unfair? BJP was the party who made him the chief minister in the first place. In 2005, there were no elections, there were no assembly elections. But BJP gave him the opportunity to become the chief minister. In 2008, BJP had no compulsion to, let him stay. But BJP told him that it is your face who's going to fight. BJP expressed his confidence on him. In 2013, the same thing happened. In 2018, the same thing happened. And when in 2020, after the by-election, BJP came back to power, it was BJP who made him the chief minister again. Where does the question of BJP being unfair to him comes from? See, this is very selfish if you say that only one individual should be promoted. You see, in this state of Madhya Pradesh, there is a whole segment of leadership that has worked day and night, that has worked with their sweat and their blood to make sure that the state reaches a certain stage in development. It is a matter of great pride that my father was given this opportunity for 16, 17 years, which is a big period, long period. And even if he was not made the chief minister, he was sent to the center because the party thought that he's required somewhere else, elsewhere, which is more important. Now, we have all sorts of agrarian issues in the country. And I feel the party's decision to elevate him and put him in that position where he could address such issues is commendable.
When people talk about Prime Minister Narendra Modi's putative successors, your father's name is among the top 2, 3. How do you look at that? Him as a potential Prime Minister? Or Amanat, if you want to take this question.
So you are asking questions of succession of Indian Prime Ministership from a 30-year-old boy who's someone's son and who's still learning. Let's see if I can answer this to you. My party's culture, BJP's culture, is not individualistic. It is collectivistic. We make collective decisions in the party. And that's why it's called a party with a difference. Who is going to lead the country? Who's not going to lead the country? Who's going to succeed whom? Is a decision that is taken collectively with a common consensus of leaders who have worked day and night. And I think it is best that we leave these kind of decisions to their intellect and their their experience and their thoughts.
Iram was telling me when I was coming here how, there is this attempt to erase Shivraj Singh Chouhan's legacy in Madhya Pradesh. Iram, you want to talk about this here?
So, do you feel there's a, we recently had some announcement where the CM Rai school name was changed. It's something that was started by Shivraj ji. Then you also had a change in the Samuhik Vivah scheme, wherein the numbers were brought down to how many weddings could happen in a given period of time. Do you feel that there's a deliberate attempt to sort of cut short Shivrajji's legacy in the state? He's been the chief minister for 18 years. The state is known sort of through his policies. So how do you look at these changes that the new government is sort of bringing in?
Look, my father was not the only chief minister in the state. He was the longest serving chief minister, yes. But every leader comes with his own set of values, his own leadership styles. And I think he has a right to decide how he wants to run the affairs of the state in best possible manners. For 17 years, a lot of schemes for general well-being was introduced by my father. But that doesn't mean that those schemes are exhaustive. If the next person comes, he has his own thought process. If a certain amount of budgetary allocation is being reduced, then that budgetary allocation is meant for something else. We don't know. Maybe he wants to spend on public infrastructure more. Maybe he wants to spend on education more. Maybe he wants to, his governance priorities are something else. Let's not question it's not a question of his legacy. And what is my father's legacy? Saying all the schemes are not just his legacy. His schemes are part of his legacy. His true legacy is his hard work, his resilience, his perseverance, his love for his people. I think that's his true legacy, and that is being followed, and that cannot be erased.
Off late, there has been, not off late, in fact, over the past 3-4 years, we have been having the discussion how Shivrajji's politics might have changed. So there was a time when he would be seen holding iftars every year. And I was part of one of those iftars here in Bhopal. And there came a time when he started projecting himself as bulldozer mama.
The time I reported was vastly different from what he reported. So
how did this transformation take place and why?
Generally speaking, not just for my father, in the BJP, our culture is sabka saath, sabka vikas, or sabka kalyan, or sabka vishwas. We are with everyone, and we will support the poor irrespective of his caste, creed, religion, or his background. As far as my father is concerned, the period that you were talking about was from 2005 till 2018, I think, if I'm not wrong. That's when all the iftar functions and all religious functions used to be celebrated. But let's look at what happened after that in 2018. The BJP could not form the government, and it came back when during the COVID times, when mass gatherings was not allowed so much. So I think we have to give it to that and not assume that he has changed as an individual or he's become some bulldozer mama. His bulldozing actions were also not directed to particular communities. It was directed to wrongdoers. It came as a warning to those who took the law in their hand. And that was a message कि मध्य प्रदेश में अगर रहोगे तो 10 फीट नीचे गाड़ देंगे. It is a threat to those who think that law is something that they could play with. His ideology has not changed. His methods may be different, but he's the same individual what he was, I think, in 2003 or before that, when he was still a member of parliament or a member of legislative assembly.
And he used to tell you about his understanding of human rights. As you said, it's for humans, not for those who violate it. Is that the...
Actually,
Yeah.
Manav Adhikar, human rights, are for humans and not for animals. We've seen cases in our society. We've seen cases that break our conscience, and it makes us question the kind of society we live in. A recent case that happened with a minor girl. I mean, we hear of so many cases that keep coming in the newspapers. His actions were against perpetrators of those heinous crimes. And he should not be looked as someone who's changed and who's become a bulldozing personality. That does not define him. He's still a mama. He's still someone who loves his people. He still has soft corner for his ladli behnas. He is dil ke saaf aur pyara mama. That's his true figure and that's his true reputation that he still holds in Madhya Pradesh and elsewhere.
Let me try to understand your vision of, when we talk about politics and governance, Kartikey Chouhan's vision is something we are pretty curious about. So to start with, let me ask you, say if you were the Agriculture Minister of India, what would you do?
You see, all the agriculture ministers that have existed in India, they've had one question in front of them, and that was how to make agriculture profitable venture. When you think about it, you get two answers. First way of doing that is by making your cost of production cheaper. So the amount of money you spend on an acre of land to cultivate a crop, it should go down. And secondly, the price that you get for your output, that should be reasonable. That should justify your efforts and your investment. The way I look at it, of course, subsidies, providing them incentives, DBT, all these kind of things are still there. But I have an outlook which has its root in technology. I visited NDRI recently. NDRI has developed a particular variety of wheat where they have removed a certain gene that is responsible for gluten. So they've removed that gene from the wheat, making it gluten-free. Now imagine if you go in the open market to sell this particular kind of wheat, it could generate a lot more margin for you. It could give you that reasonable price that you were looking for. Similarly, how can yield be increased? A crop's yield could be increased How could the crop be made more resilient to viruses? It could be made more resilient to pests. I think innovations and inventions in those areas are needed. And if you make me the agriculture minister today, somehow, my focus would be on technology, on technological developments, and on know-how, on research. I think this is how I would probably do it.
Why are our politicians so wary of reforms in agriculture? Say the three farm laws with the center brought and finally scrapped them. I mean, would you bring them back? Would you really, as a politician, go to the people and try to convince them that these laws were good?
See, it's not in politics. It's not always, the picture is not always black and white. There's a spectrum. There are a decision in a political life is made keeping into account whims and wishes of everyone, what everyone wants, what is affecting the people, how is it affecting the people. Without understanding it, a decision cannot be concluded. As far as farm laws are concerned, there are many things that I would agree with, but somehow it was not accepted amongst the masses. And a government's job, once it realizes that the farm laws are not going down well with the people, a government's job is not to be tough about it, but to understand why the people think so. Even though government's laws were justified, the government decided to roll them back because the government has a soft corner and it has an inclusive approach towards its people. If you ask me, would you bring back the farm laws? I would probably follow the same approach which is being followed right now. And though the approach requires me to have discussions, it requires me to update my learnings, it requires me to adapt and correct myself if needed.
You are a young leader. Uh, what do you have to offer to the youth? I mean, when you are in a position of power, when you can probably make those changes, what would you do for them?
See, my understanding of what youth wants is roti, kapda, makan, rozgar, padhai likhai ka intizam. Three things are very important to youngsters. They want to be educated, they want to be employed, and the third thing which I believe is important is they want to be actively involved in sports. They want to be fit, they want to be healthy, they want to challenge themselves. Let's talk about the first two things. Now, the education system that we have in India, unfortunately, after the Britishers, it has always taught us to learn, to rote learn, and not to think. For example, I studied about differentiation and integration during my mathematical classes in school. But I was never told how to apply the concepts of differentiation and integration into the economical statistical reading. How do you derive a particular data in an economy by using these equations? I feel like a lot of application-based approach is needed. A lot of effort has to be put into foundational, into the foundational learning of our students. They should be taught more about emotional intelligence in their primary years of school. They should be taught more about financial intelligence. Our kids should know what is the difference between keeping 100 rupees in a savings account versus investing it into a mutual fund. Our kids should know about their tax systems. Our kids should know how a salaried individual is taxed versus how a corporate is taxed. They should know difference between taxation after expenses and taxation before expenses in case of corporations. They should know these kind of things. Why should a kid wait for 30 years Why should he study for 30 years to wait for getting a job when he could learn necessary skills during his schools and get on with it, with life, and upgrade himself eventually? I think that is something I would like to work on. And I congratulate Prime Minister Narendra Modi for the new education policy in 2020. It is addressing several issues. Secondly, let's speak on employment. Now, you would agree with me if I say employment is one of the biggest problems in India or in our state right now. But bigger problem than employment is misguidance. Now, 5,000 years from now, the jobs that were available in the market were that of warriors, potters, those who could make swords, those who could draw an arrow, those who could win battles. Those kind of jobs were needed in this country. You tell me, were AI experts needed 5,000 years back? No. Today, what's happening in our country is we have majority, like not majority, but a large chunk of our young population applying for jobs that has acceptance rate of just 1%. They want clerical jobs. They want government jobs that offer them security. Meanwhile, our country is facing acute shortage in fields that are more in demand, like AI. Let's talk about drone operators. Where do we have drone operators? Do we have data analysts? Do we have enough stockbrokers? Do we have enough? We have enough civil engineers, but do we have AI engineers? So there are jobs available in India in market right now, but sadly there are no applicants.
People are not opting for them because they're not aware, and that misdirection is kind of what's leaving.
For me, creating that awareness, letting my fellow youngsters know that, look, you can apply for this job and you can get yourself a much better life than this, is important. Our workforce should be told, should be guided in the right direction, and not just told that there is high unemployment rate. Tell them why there is high unemployment rate, because for those fields that require employment, there are no applicants.
So how do you explain the fact that, say for the UPSC exam, you have lakhs of applicants for just a few hundreds of jobs, and yet they prepare for years and years. After so many years, they finally become unemployed because they have not been able to crack the exam because there's not many vacancies. And yet they keep going at it year after year. Because I was listening to your wife earlier. Now what she said, she wanted to be a surgeon, but chemistry came in between. And so she changed the stream. But people here are not ready to change. I mean, that openness is missing here somehow. That, okay, this is the only option they go with. If not that, nothing else.
I think it's unfortunate. It's definitely unfortunate, but the reason lies somewhere in our upbringing. I grew up and I was always told that if you study religiously, you will get a job, you'll get a good life, and if you do engineering, you'll get settled. IIT mein gaye to theek hai, nahi to nahi. At least when I was born, these kind of talks were there. Now people talk about different things. They've started talking about laws and other fields as well. But when I was growing up, only few options that were available in the society was either UPSC, ya to engineer IIT, ya to fir medical. I think this has to change. We need more chefs also. We do. Our hospitality industry is expected to grow at 15%. Tourists are flooding into our country. Where do you think they'll spend their money? They don't want your engineering. They're coming here for experiences. This is the kind of outlook I want to present to my country.
Like these jobs shouldn't be looked as menial or not as good as those other ones, and they have more pay, if not equal. Yeah.
Before I wind up, Amanat, we have to have the last word. Would you like to add something to what he has said?
No, I think I've been interrupting callously in the middle. I think those are my inputs. yeah, still learning. Don't want to speak out of turn and before my time.
On that note, we must end this interview. It was a pleasure listening to you. Amanat, Kartikey, it was a real pleasure. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Iram and DKG.
Thank you for having us.
It was lovely talking to
really
you.
interacting with you.
Thank you.